Welcome to Aging Gayfully. We're about adventure, leisure, travel, being a citizen of the world, traveling to destinations, and being a part of the global community as we age and prosper in body, mind, and spirit.
Welcome to Aging Gayfully. I am Josh.
I am Chris, and I'm jealous because I don't have a hat on. What's up with that?
This hat I bought in New Orleans.
Well,
I bought this hat off Jackson
that
Square.
makes it even worse because I wasn't in New Orleans with you on that. But I guess it's much better to travel with the family than your podcasting buddy.
Well, I say it's much better to travel with all sorts of different kinds of people.
Well,
so
that's true. That's what that's kind of what Aging Gayfully is all about, traveling.
let's take a trip.
I'm ready.
But first, let's jump right into the headlines. Chris, you wanted to talk about this kicker who has voiced his opinion.
Harrison Butker. I've kind of a football. I'm not. Well, I have to say, I'm not really a football fan anymore. I do watch. I watched the Super Bowl the last 2 years because I do have an affinity for Kansas City since it's in Missouri, where I was from. But goodness gracious, St. Ignatius, this kicker really, he really kicked up a firestorm, no pun intended, with his commencement speech at Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. It's a small little Catholic university in Atchison, Kansas. Actually, a couple of my nephews went there, so
Oh, wow.
it's an excellent school. But people are up in arms for the kicker sharing his opinions. I don't know. What do you think about people sharing their opinions when they're different from your own?
There are many layers to this.
Yeah, there are
So
many. That's yeah.
If you have not heard out there in the larger Aging Gayfully world, Harrison Butker shared his opinion that women should be homemakers and not have a career.
And he talked about the LGBTQ community and made a lot of remarks that are basically his own personal beliefs. Doesn't make them right or wrong. It just makes them his. And I don't know. Maybe I'm taking a different view at this. And I don't agree with pretty much anything that he said. But does he have the right to say that? Do we we're having all these conversations, all these political conversations about political correctness and what can you say and what can't you say? But what draws the line? Just because somebody says what they believe, do you have to believe it? Can you respect somebody's opinion or place in life when it's diversely different from your own? That's, I think, one of the challenges of communication. I don't agree with anything that he said, and it's very derogatory to gays and women, and that's just my opinion. But I don't know. Is it okay for him to share his opinion?
I think it's all a matter of degree and a matter of scope. Because if the gentleman is in a pub down the street and he's had a couple beers to loosen up his opinion hole,
Alcohol, truth serum.
he's going to spout off, and I could leave the pub if I want, or I can just ignore him, and that's fine. The concern for me is always people who have a larger platform and they have the ability to influence large group of people.
Right.
Then I start to get concerned, because the reality is that I can deal fine with a person or with two people.
Yeah.
It's when you get these large groups of people that it gets really tricky and then very potentially dangerous. It's the whole I can yell fire in my room alone, and that's fine. But if I yell fire in a movie theater, and then we have real
Right.
consequences. I think that human beings are not evolved to handle the large amount of information that we have coming towards us
It
from all the
it comes
media,
from
from
all
social media.
different angles for sure.
At the end of the day, and this also kind of creeps into the idea of cancel culture.
Right.
But I think the reason why we don't have good answers to this and the reason why it gets messy is because I don't believe that we can handle all of this, the open communication. I don't believe that we can handle the degree of communication that we have. The access is the word that I'm stumbling for. The access both to the ability to receive information, and then for some people, and it's a luck of the draw in today's world, whether you go viral or whether you get influence, for people to have that much ability to affect other people, I think is very dangerous. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, does this gentleman have a right to spout off with all this hate? Well, I guess so,
Mm.
especially in the privacy of his own home. But understanding that it's a weapon of mass destruction when you have a larger and larger platform.
Right.
I think that the best thing that could have happened to all this is Tweedledum could have given his speech in front of this group of small college people. The crowd agree or disagree, whatever, but then it go no further. You know, or this came out in the news, and it's like, okay, well, this guy's an idiot. Let's just move on to the next thing, and it gets zero oxygen. But the fact of the matter
It gets
is that
oxygen.
it does get oxygen
Right.
because that leads, and that gains attention and all this and that. So I don't have a great answer to your question, except to say that when it reaches this point, then it's distracting at best and dangerous at worst.
I think there's a fine line, and you described it. It's a fine line between newsworthy events and opinion. And I think the world of cable television and YouTube and things that we do, we're sharing our opinions on life events and how they impact us, and it, it- uh, and that's the joy of having free speech and sharing our opinions and trying to meet people in the middle, uh, and that respect of others, even when they're in a different universe. And I think that's really kind of what the message that we've tried to portray here at Aging Gayfully is, that everybody's welcome no matter what your opinion is. Um, at least that's, maybe I live in a Pollyanna world, but I'd like to be able to. I just I like talking and meeting people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different experiences, because it enlightens me as a person. And if I'm looking for the same respect of my personal beliefs, and then I think it's something that you have to give in return.
So I've just sat here then and called this gentleman an idiot. So perhaps maybe I need to I need to drop that mindset. If this guy agreed to be on our show, would you have him on our show?
Yeah, I would. Obviously, we have different points of view about life and life in general. Um, but I'd find common ground somewhere, because I think we can find common ground with everybody that we talk to. We find that common ground through our stories and through our experiences. I think it comes back down to something that's just can be really similar, is that respect to another person's humanity, because everybody's experiences are different. and I think this is where the fine line comes in. Giving, and you mentioned it earlier, giving, the university gave him the opportunity to promote his point of view. That's more on the university than it is. It's what they would have had to have known what his beliefs were before inviting him. I mean that. I mean, oh, goodness. I mean, I want to. Any guests that I've had on any of my podcasts, I kind of not want to. I fill out the guest questionnaire. Let me know a little bit about your background, and we'll find that common thread. But I don't know. I just coming back to this is that why are people surprised at what he said? And sure, people were all open for criticism for our own personal beliefs. But does that make somebody's personal beliefs wrong just because they're theirs?
I see now again, that's a different fine line because I do believe that people can hold personal beliefs that are morally and ethically objectionable.
Right,
So that so yes, you can have personal beliefs and opinions that are wrong.
right. But that does that keep them from, what's what I'm trying to say? I guess what I'm trying to say is, they can everybody can share their personal beliefs and experiences and articulate it in any way that they want. I can choose whether or not I want to receive it. And I think that's what's missing in some of our in these debates that's been going on now, I'd say for, I don't know, I'm just going to use a kind of a time frame of 10 years. You could people can try to pinpoint where that 10 years started, but you can choose to you can choose to uh, pay attention to it or not pay attention to it. I choose not to pay attention to it. I'm aware of it, but does it
Yeah.
does it impact me? I don't like any of that. I mean, I can't relate to it, but relate to um, I can relate to being felt like a second class citizen because of being gay.
Yeah.
I can certainly relate to that. I can relate to choosing where I want to work and who I want to hang out with. And just having that information about somebody's personal beliefs or uh, makes it easier to make those choices. I don't know. I think this is. I love these types of conversations that when we get into it because it really is thought provoking.
As usual, in your position on the mountain as the snow white bearded guru, have given me something to think about. So I do appreciate that.
Just my thought for the day.
No, I love it. I love it. Well, we'll see if this guy wants to come on. All right, Harrison, I'm talking to you now. If you want to come on, we
Yeah,
will have
we have a
a
nice visit. I mean,
engaging conversation,
yeah. So
and I will be kind and I will be respectful in all of the things. I
yeah.
promise.
Hmm.
All right, so let's move on. Our next topic is really a continuation of what we talked about last week. Last week, we introduced this idea of the National Wellness Institute's 6 dimensions of wellness. And so we're just listing what they are. And again, the reason why I believe that this is important is it reminds us that as human beings, we have all of these different types of needs that go beyond just physical and emotional and intellectual. There's our social needs and our spiritual needs and even our vocational needs. And we have to, every day, we have to be tending to each of these dimensions to make sure that we are healthy as an entire individual. It's not like I go to the gym or anything, but if I did, that would not just be enough. And I know that folks, they tend to focus on one or two parts of their
Right.
wellness and neglect the others, but you can't do that.
Well, you may not know this. Do you? because going to the gym, you just said it. You know, if you ever see me in the gym, then you know I've been abducted by aliens.
Someone is wearing a Chris MacLellan suit at the
If you're
gym.
in the gym, I've been abducted by aliens. That's the only way I'm getting into the gym. So
Well, we are okay. So we did talk about physical, intellectual, and social wellness last week. So we're going to continue with the last three. And again, as I mentioned last week, the initial this initial model, as released by the National Wellness Institute, gives us six things. But since then, this has been expanded upon, and there are other things that I'll mention at the end in passing. But these six, just as the basis of our starting our discussion, our conversation, is the ones that we're talking about. So next up is it's very important to tend to our emotional wellness, and that's really, put very simply, our capacity to handle the feelings that we have.
right, kind of like what we were just talking about with the kicker.
Oh yes, yes. As I was filled with rage, but you helped me manage that, and and I appreciate that. And we are in a place right now, I feel like, in the world where we're just having all of these feelings, and most of them are the negative feelings, anxiety and fear and reaction to stress.
Mm-hmm.
And the world just needs to stop and breathe and catch hold of all of these feelings, because they're all just building on each other, and they one person's foul mood escalates someone else's foul mood. And so tending to our emotional wellness is not just good for us, it's good for society.
Good for society, very much so.
So
Finding that path to happiness and joy. It's not Pollyannic. It's kind of what where we want to be in life.
so what do you do for that?
I I've paid more attention to what is good for me and not feeling bad about it. One of the things I find myself doing on a regular basis is when there's a little stress that's come in, and that stress has been orchestrated by a third party. I just kind of instead of getting mad, I kind of take a step back and turn on Sirius XM Escape and just kind of soak in the relaxation. Wish I'd have learned that trait 30 years ago, but Sirius XM Escape wasn't available 30 years ago. But
That's when we had
I think
mixtapes.
it's given given yourself that permission to escape, and that it's okay. Finding um, that 5 minutes of me time or whatever you need to just kind of deprogram and be okay with it. I I think too much. I mean, of course, I'm not working in the corporate world anymore, so um, there's so much stress put on people that are working, that that 9 to 5 job, that where there's always something that somebody else needs, and then in order to get that, you have to almost like you have to go through layers of permission to be able to have something approved. That just adds to the stress. And and I don't know. Again, I do want to live in a Pollyannic world. I want everything to be kumbaya, but we have to find. I think it comes back to finding our boundaries and being okay with saying no.
Yeah, I think that establishing boundaries is so important. And one of the things about our world today, like I mentioned before, is we have all of this stuff coming at us. We have all this information coming at us, and we just got to disconnect at some point, and we need to set our own boundary in what we let influence us. So we got to We got to put the phone down, and we got to turn the computer off, and we got to go for a walk. The other thing that I've noticed is that the people do a lot of venting online, and so they're attempting to get their feelings out. If we would spend half as much time as we spend doing all that online, and find someone that we can just have a face-to-face conversation with, that we can another human being that we can spill our thoughts, and we can process our emotions with, and of course I mean in a constructive, positive way, not ranting at people,
Right.
we would be so much more emotionally in tune and emotionally healthy. Because I think that the way you're most naturally evolved to do it is, to another person,
Right. Mm.
to face to face, and you're having a conversation. This texting into the void, and posting rants and emotional distress online. um,
I don't get
I,
it. Yeah.
I mean, I get it in that if people don't think that they have anywhere else to connect, that
Oh,
is a place
okay.
to
I
connect,
can
right?
understand that. Yeah.
So it definitely serves people, but my fear isn't that people who have no other way to do it are doing it. My fear is people who are eschewing in real life conversations and interactions because doing it online is easier. No, the best case scenario is that we have tough conversations, and we are brave enough to open ourselves up and make ourselves vulnerable to the person across the table from us. That's harder,
Right.
but it's also healthier, and it's it's how we are supposed to work.
Right. Mm.
Again,
Mhm.
there are some people, because of access, because of where they are, there's always exceptions, and there's always that case of people, like, for example, who feel marginalized in their community, and the only connection that they may have is online. I get that. I get that. At the same time, we should still be seeking out in real life connections, because I believe, this is my opinion that's probably backed by science that I've not researched, that it's healthier, and we're evolved to do it face to face.
Because we all want to feel connected in one way or another. You would hope that that connectedness would be on more of the positive side than the negative side. But that old cliche is your glass half full or half empty. I, for years, I went on the half empty side. I've, I've turned the switch. My glass is half full, if not three quarters.
So I would encourage you out there to tend to your emotional wellness. And that, of course, all of these six things are so important, and I would say equally important. And how you are emotionally will affect how you are physically,
Hmm.
and how you are intellectually. If you're stressed and you're constantly in a state of anxiety, your ability to learn, it suffers.
Right.
And being scared and anxious and frightened will affect you socially and spiritually, and on and on and on, all of these things. So I would encourage you to seek connection in positive ways. The next one that I have here is spiritual. Now, people might get all nervous, and all of a sudden they feel like I'm going to evangelize to them. Not so, but the reality is that in order to find how we fit in this whole big universe, we have to tend to that quote unquote spiritual part of us. There is a yearning for us to find meaning in life. And that's really the birth of religion, is attempting to connect meaning to life. And
Right.
then
And
from meaning,
yeah.
we get purpose.
Right.
And purpose, purpose is what gets us up every morning. There's a reason to get up because there is a meaning. And how do we find that meaning?
Right. And there's oftentimes a misunderstanding. Well, I'm not going to use misunderstanding. People look at when they hear the word spirituality, everybody has a different connotation about spirituality, whether it's is that religion, or is that community, or is that introspection.
Yeah.
That's it's that for me, I've always looked at spirituality as that. that journey inward to be comfortable outward, if that makes any sense. And it's through the stories. Um, yeah, after 5, 6 years in the Catholic seminary, this spirituality and religion mean two completely different things to me. And I think spirituality really is that absorbing that inner purpose of yourself and finding that comfort zone that's devoid of dogma.
I've got 4 children, and it's been very interesting raising kids and exposing them to this idea of spirituality, but also giving them the freedom to explore it on their terms because
That's so
you
good.
know it's the most important thing that they can decide in their lives, and that is determining the meaning of why they're here, determining what it is that drives them and gives them purpose. And so whatever it is, I need for that to be something that they determine on their own, because I've seen too many examples, way too many examples of kids who are raised in their parents and their community's dogma, and it's a crushing thing to reach the middle of your life and realize that you don't actually believe that, and half of your life has been spent doing this or
Oh
that
goodness,
you
we
no
could
longer
do we
believe.
could do a whole series on this because you just touched so many areas for me, at least personally, and I know a lot of our listeners would feel the same way, especially folks like myself who grew up in the '60s, going to Catholic school, where your parents, you couldn't ask why are we, why, why? Well, because this is what the way it is. Oh well, but you know, but why? And giving, I this is just so touched the way you explain that is to give your kids the opportunity to choose. With the direct that fine line of the direction. For me personally, and it was something that was forced. And it's funny in the seminary we came up with a term called forced fun.
Yeah.
When you you were made to do something without any reason, without any rhyme or reason for it, that happens a lot when you're trying to develop a spirituality. When you've been conditioned to where this is something you should do rather than something that should come naturally. And I it's funny how you trigger memories. This was like in 8th grade. The pastor comes into the room, and he was, I forget exactly why he was there, but I do remember the friend of mine standing up to him. We was in 8th grade, and he was talking about church, and he said, and the kid said, "I never asked to do this." And everybody kind of gasped because here you are. That would probably in the very early '70s, if I was in 8th grade, that you would never really have at that time. You wouldn't have the freedom
Mhm.
to respond like that. And he did it. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday. I remember how he did it. He did it respectfully, but it posed the question, well, I never had a choice in this.
And so you seeing that or hearing that in 8th grade, in your 8th grade mind, what did that start to do anything to you, or did you just
Well, if I was to put myself in those shoes, it would be, I wouldn't have been well versed enough at that point in my life to recognize that was something that was okay to say.
Mhm. Yep. Hence the importance of giving children and young adults, people moving in that direction, the freedom to be able to ask those questions comfortably and safely, because then those will be the adults growing up
Right.
and starting to people society who will make it okay for any number of people with differing opinions to ask questions and feel safe to do it,
I growing up,
which will build a different
and I
society.
can't speak for my 5 siblings because we really grew up in 2 different families because of our age
Yeah.
difference. I never
Yeah.
I never felt, comfortable in
Hmm.
questioning anything because it was always this way or no way.
So spiritual health, spiritual development. The first thing to do is to determine and decide that you can find a safe place to explore this, but then also realizing that what we think about the meaning of life determines what we do. It determines what we give value to. It determines of what we feel
Mhm.
our purpose is,
Right.
and so it's important to recognize that that's a crucial aspect. You may be atheist, but that does not mean that you are
You're not spiritual.
bereft of a spiritual
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, it's funny
So,
you say that 'cause, Richard claimed to be he claimed to be an agnostic Jew. Eh,
mhm,
and I was always taken by that because we would have interesting conversations about spirituality and how that impacted and when I held him in my arms when he died, uh, and we just both had this feeling. I'm speaking for me as it relates to him
yeah,
of tranquility. That's where the spirituality between the two people
yeah.
really happened. You're taking me on a lot of memory roads today, so it's all good.
Well, I'm your driver, so buckle in.
Where where are we going next, Captain?
The last place here, and I put these not in order of importance, but I put spirituality before this last one because it as far as I'm concerned, for the reasons that I mentioned, it leads to it. The last one is occupational or vocational. And, I work with a community of people who are retired. That does not mean that this part of your wellness no longer exists. So this refers to that work that you do that comes from whatever you feel like the meaning of life is and whatever your purpose is. People who retire probably go through a period of time where they think, oh, this is great. I can travel. I can just sit at home, do this, do that. That really quickly gets old because I think at some point you realize, well, wait a second. I still have something to contribute. I still want to do something. Oftentimes people will retire and then they'll attempt to go back to work because they feel that. And so doing something as a result of what you feel like your purpose in the world is, that's what this dimension of wellness refers to. It's
Right,
called occupational just because they had to name it something, but it doesn't just mean your job that you get paid for. It could be your volunteer work. It could be however you share your gifts and talents in a meaningful way. They could be you take up art in your retirement years and you decide to display it or
right,
sell it, or you just do it for your own amusement or for your own feeling of, well, my purpose is I am an artist. I create art. I have created art, and so I feel fulfilled. Whatever it is, it's important to find those things that your talents, your gifts, your abilities, and your preferences compel you to do based on what you think your purpose is.
right. If the key word there is finding your purpose. Some people find their purpose after they retire because they have the freedom to explore. And I would imagine you've seen that quite a bit in your line of
Yes,
work.
very much so. And like I said, it's very interesting. Retirees,
Yeah.
at first, they believe that they've now boarded the cruise ship of life. Now we just lay around in the deck chair and do nothing. That doesn't last very long. That gets very old very quickly.
Well, but it's good to schedule time on the deck chair.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That just can't be the only thing.
That's right. You have to have something else. But you need a podcast partner.
There you go. So let me
There you
ask you
go.
this, Scott McClellan. I mean Chris McClellan. Um, or is it Ian? What did we establish? I think Ian is the name
It was Scott, and then Ian would be
and then
another.
Ian, yeah.
Yeah.
Ian, Chris, Scott, whatever. What is your purpose?
What is my purpose? Um, my purpose is to bring joy and happiness to other people's lives.
How's that going?
It's going good.
Very good.
It's going
Very
good.
good.
I've been blessed to have one very beautiful and meaningful relationship. I have good friends. I have a good relationship with my family. And I'm aspiring to do things that are challenging to me, yet fun. Yeah, I just wish I'd have had that path 30 years ago, but I'm glad I got it now.
Yeah, but we're here now. And
That's right.
that's who's to say that had you not had the path you had, that you would be here now. And that's the way we have to look at our past, that whatever our past brought us, here we
We
are.
all remember from our past when we were most happiest.
Yeah.
And when I was most happiest was when I was bowling professionally, because I didn't have to worry about anybody else in the corporate world. I, the results, I dictated the results by my skills and abilities. Unfortunately, I got 30 is old in any type of sports. So, but I remember that time being happy at that time because uh, I was totally responsible.
Yep.
Didn't have to rely on um, I didn't have to rely on somebody else approving what I wanted to do.
Yes, that does sound lovely. So, those are the 6 dimensions of wellness. Now, I did mention that folks have thrown others on there, like, for example, environmental is one that has been added on there by some people. In other words, our connection with the world, the natural world around us, which is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have added financial. But I think that for a starting point, if you look at these 6 things that I've mentioned, physical, intellectual, social, emotional, spiritual, and
Mm-hmm.
occupational wellness, you are on a good path. Now, Chris, what is the path for people to get in touch with us?
It's really simple. Just email us at yesiam at aginggayfully.com. That's yesiam at aginggayfully.com. Visit aginggayfully.com for a little information about our podcast and our merchandise, and we're kind of growing and showing, and our show is available on demand as well at a Whole Care Network. Just go to the Google Store. Is it, it's Apple Store or Google Play, and look for WCN streaming. And you can listen on demand for Aging Gayfully whenever you want. We're everywhere.
Very good. Very good. Very good. I just want to say um, that you just said that we are growing and showing. That means something different to me, and I am definitely not doing that right now. So,
Well, it's funny that you said that because I wasn't going there when I said it, but I get the drift.
oh, we were doing so well too. All right, folks. Until next week, I've been Josh, and that's Chris, and y'all have a good week.
Aging Gayfully. Bye bye.
Bye.